has it. The obstruction, the deflection, the inability to do any work in this place because of some of the members of the opposition mean that it is very important that we move on this. You know, it is very important that we get this support out for people as fast as we possibly can. So I'm very supportive of this bill. I'm very supportive of working with people from all parties to make this bill stronger. I look forward to conversations with the member. Thank you.
And that brings us to statements by members. Déclaration de député, the honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize and celebrate the political career and achievements of Hamilton City Councillor Sam Marula. Following in the hard-working footsteps of his mother Rosalia and his late father Giuseppe Marula, Sam has dedicated his entire life to serving the public, and after 22 years of service, has decided to retire from elected office. Like a brother to me, he was always quick to offer good guidance, counsel, and support when I needed it most. Enhanced public transit, affordable housing, services for seniors and the disabled, infrastructure renewal, the list goes on. Councillor Marula was a leader on all issues, and it's largely because of his hard work and determination that we see what many consider a renaissance in our great city of Hamilton. I know that Sam is anxious to spend more family time with his wife Corinne and his two daughters, Sabrina and Alexa, and their families, and the newest addition to the Marula family, baby Remy. Madam Speaker, please join me in congratulating Councillor Marula for his more than 2 decades of service to the residents of Ward 4 and the entire city of Hamilton.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman.
Madam Speaker, Vladimir Kara-Murza was arrested in April by Vladimir Putin's thugs on a trumped-up charge of spreading false information about the Russian military. His supposed crime? Condemning Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine while speaking on U.S. soil. And now, just last week, the Kremlin kleptocrats in their kangaroo court have upped the ante, charging Mr. Kara-Murza with treason, which carries a 20-year sentence. This is the despicable show trial by Putin and his cronies. Clearly, the corrupt Russian court system is helping Putin punish his political opponents and muzzle anyone who dares speak the truth about his barbaric invasion and genocide he's committing in Ukraine. These are the kinds of gross human rights violations the Magnitsky Act was designed to address. If Russia refuses to bow to pressure and release Vladimir Kara-Murza, the full force of sanctions must rain down on all responsible for this abuse of authority. Vladimir Kara-Murza is a political prisoner, a prisoner of conscience, a human rights defender. Canada must speak out on the international stage and forcefully call for his immediate release.
The honourable member for Halifax West.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The 30th Annual Women's History Month in Canada. This year's theme, Elle m'a ouvert la voie. She did, so now I can. I want to take this opportunity to praise the amazing women-led and women-serving organizations in our communities. In Halifax West, I want to give a shout-out to the Centre for Women in Business at Mount St. Vincent University, celebrating 30 years of helping women entrepreneurs this year. The Sisterhood of Deman Foundation, a group of Canadian women with kinship to their ancestral village of Deman, a small village overlooking the Kadisha Valley in Lebanon, who last month raised $160,000 to support the education of youth from Deman.
As we commemorate Women's History Month, we are motivated to follow in their footsteps and reflect on what each one of us can do to create a more equitable society. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, I would like to pay tribute to a citizen of my riding and former mayor of the city of Blainville, Richard Perrault, for his great contribution to the vitality of the region. Mr. Perrault has a remarkable record of public service. He has served the citizens of the city of Blainville for more than 16 years, first as a municipal councillor, then as mayor, and also as reeve of the Thérèse de Blainville MRC. Mr. Perrault has greatly contributed to the vitality of Blainville, which has more than once been named one of the top cities to live in. In recognition of his immense contribution, the city of Blainville has decided to name the VIP room of the Centre of Excellence on Ice after him. This is a highly deserved honour that reflects well on him. Congratulations, Mr. Perrault, for your achievements marked by deep commitment.
L'honorable député de Mercorel-Fortin. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, today I want to pay tribute to a man who practices a trade that is on the verge of extinction, that of shoemaker. Serkis Berijiksan is the owner of the Jean-Paul II shoe repair shop in the Old Saint-Rose district of Laval, a typical cobbler of the 1970s. Mr. Berijikan was born in 1946 in Syria and moved with his parents to Lebanon. He trained as a shoemaker in Lebanon, his adopted country. He arrived in Canada in February 1988 and opened his cobbler shop in 1991. Mr. Berijikan is a professional and friendly shoemaker who offers high-quality work at a good price. Even at age 76, he is still passionate about his craft. As we often say, we need to encourage our local merchants.
The Honourable Member for York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart, along with my colleagues from Barrie Ennisville and Barrie Springwater Oro-Medonte, to honour Constable Devin Northrop and Constable Morgan Russell, members of the South Simcoe Police Service, who tragically fell in the line of duty last week. These brave men gave everything they had to protect their communities and ultimately sacrificed their lives doing so. Their incredible courage, their commitment to duty and service will not be forgotten by the grateful residents of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Innisfil, and all Canadians. Though we cannot imagine the heartbreak and grief their families and colleagues are going through, I hope it gives some solace to know that Constables Northrop and Russell will always be remembered as heroes. This senseless tragedy is a sobering reminder of the debt we owe those who wear the badge and the very real risks of their calling. I ask all members on behalf of Canadians to join me in showing gratitude to the sacrifice made by Constable Northrop and Constable Russell. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's Small Business Week, and I'd like to highlight two small businesses in my riding that I visited last week. Yoga-tastic for Kids is a heart and mindfulness business owned by Sandra and Rich, providing various yoga and mindfulness programming that caters to children and adults in their beautiful Burlington studio. Crepe Presso is owned by Mohe and Farah, who moved to Canada as Syrian refugees in 2015. In September, they opened their family-owned and operated business in North Oakville, welcoming all sweet tooths and those who love crepes and coffee. I'd also like to acknowledge the support provided by the Burlington and Oakville Chambers of Commerce to small businesses. In particular, my friend France Fournier, whose leadership and inclusion efforts have not gone unnoticed since her appointment as President and CEO of the Oakville Chamber in January of this year. Thank you to the small businesses and those that support them this week and every week.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is indeed Small Business Week, and it's a great time to salute those small and medium enterprises that truly are the foundation of Canada's economy. And it's just as great a time to recognize the people who work so hard to support those businesses. People like Dean Barber of our Fleetwood Business Improvement Association, or Balja Dalwal and Anita Huberman of the Surrey Board of Trade. Their tireless work has been backstopped by our government's pandemic supports, the Canada Child Benefit, and so many other programs. Our government's focus on supporting people who really need some help works, because that money is spent close to home at our local businesses. That's why, unlike the previous Conservative government, we don't send checks to millionaires, and that's why we have more small businesses open for business in Fleetwood Port Kells today than before the pandemic. All in all, we're a great team making a big difference for families, small and medium-sized businesses, and a strong community. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the new Conservative leader will put the people first, their paycheck, their savings, their house, their country. And and he'll put farm families first who've been busy harvesting in the fields. Rain or shine, hail or snow, these folks measure their time in acres, not hours. Farming isn't a job, it's a way of life, it's a heritage, it's a calling. From before the sun gets up to long after it sets, they ensure that the rest of Canada, when they head to the store, there's food on the shelves. It's simple. Farmers feed families, Mr. Speaker. To those farmers who are listening, thank you. Thank you for giving up the meals at your table so that my family can have a meal at ours. Thank you for being a wonderful example of hard work, faith, and dedication. Thank you for being stewards of the land, keeping it healthy now and for future generations. And when the Liberal government belittles you and thinks they can tell you how to do your job, when carbon taxes and fertilizer reductions, know that on this side of the House, you are, and always will be, heroes. We will never stop fighting for Canada's farm families. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Canada Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I am absolutely outraged, furious. The anti-feminist hashtag used by the leader of the Conservative Party is a portal to some of the darkest, most hateful material on the internet. User of the hashtag supports terrorizing women, banning homosexuality, and legalizing rape. It's not a common hashtag. It's a hashtag of a dark internet subculture. Its use by the leader of the opposition was deliberate, strategic, and dangerous. Now under scrutiny, he pretends to have no recollection of the hashtag's use and its consequences. Really, Mr. Speaker? This is beyond locker room talk. This is violent misogyny. I hope Canadians recognize that this is not leadership. This is reprehensible behavior that is dangerous and is divisive, and it is not welcome in this country, let alone this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Inflation is at a 40-year high. Thanks to this Liberal government's plan, the cost of food, the cost of transportation, and home heating is skyrocketing. Now we learn that home heating prices will go 50 to 100% more this winter. In my city of Saskatoon, we've seen a dramatic increase in the use of the food bank from 13,000 a month to over 20,000 people a month. Seniors in my constituency are already grappling with day-to-day expenses. The Liberal plan to triple the carbon tax in the new year will only make it more difficult for families and seniors to keep up with the cost of living. Our new Conservative leader will put people first.
Hear, hear.
Protect their paychecks, their savings, their home, and protect their country. We will continue to fight this dismal Liberal carbon tax.
The Honourable Member for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, the new Conservative leader will put the people first. Their paychecks, their savings, their home, and their country. Small business owners are the unsung heroes of the Canadian economy. These entrepreneurs employ nearly 2/3 of workers across Canada, providing meaningful paychecks to millions of Canadians. But right now, under the Liberals, small businesses are being punished with higher payroll taxes, leaving them with higher costs for every person that relies on that business for a paycheck. They are also being punished with the carbon tax. Small and medium-sized businesses have to pay the whole thing and have no choice but to pass those costs along to consumers. This has made it more expensive for Canadians to buy local, homegrown products than goods that have been flown, trucked, and shipped from other countries. This Small Business Week, Conservatives will keep working to turn hurt into hope for business owners. We stand with these risk takers and job creators. We will keep fighting the Liberal NDP coalition, plan tax increases, and call for a cap on government spending. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, governments are facing many challenges such as war and inflation, and I would like to make the House of Commons aware of the crisis that the Haitian people are once again experiencing. Haiti is experiencing a multidimensional crisis, a political crisis where the absence of credible authorities and democratic institutions has led to the development of heavily armed gangs that rape women and terrorize the people, even before the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse. A humanitarian crisis that has caused the people to suffer even more poverty and the arrival of cholera, an economic crisis with the help of oligarchs who continue to squander Haiti's resources. Corruption is on an unprecedented scale. The diaspora is very concerned about the situation. As a Canadian member of Parliament of Haitian origin, I call on all members of Parliament to show their solidarity for the dignity of the Haitian people. Thank you.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, and I want to remind all members of this House that poverty is a political choice. It is a choice of governments not to fund and support people. It is a choice not to ask corporations and the ultra-rich to pay their fair share. It is a choice not to prioritize the crisis of poverty that is putting people on the streets, fueling a mental health crisis, and forcing people to use food banks to survive. We must make different choices, including by implementing a guaranteed livable basic income that ensures everyone can live with dignity. Poverty is a violent human rights violation, and it's time to stop picking and choosing which human rights we uphold. Mr. Speaker, Nelson Mandela said that, in quotes, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice. While poverty persists, there is no true freedom." End of quotes. Let us remember these words and work to end poverty once and for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, the inflation that we are currently experiencing is difficult to bear, but it is worse for those who are already struggling. As we mark the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, let's keep less affluent seniors in our thoughts, seniors who were already struggling to pay for groceries before prices skyrocketed, seniors for whom every rent increase is another sacrifice in their basic needs. These people need to be supported. As we speak, there are 3 million seniors who have been abandoned by the federal government in the face of rising prices. 3 million people who, because they have the misfortune of being between 65 and 74 years old, are not eligible for any increase in their old age pension. On this International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, Ottawa must finally understand that this age discrimination does the opposite. It doesn't eliminate poverty, it exacerbates it. On this day, let's insist that the government finally address this serious lack of compassion.
The honourable member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This weekend, residents of Vancouver and the Lower Mainland cast their ballots in municipal elections, and the results are in. British Columbians rejected and repudiated left-wing politicians for the mess they've made of our cities, including kicking NDP Mayor Kennedy Stewart and all his city councillors out of office in Vancouver. Voters sent a clear message. There is too much violence on our streets and the cost of living is too high. Vancouver, Surrey, and White Rock residents elected new mayors who will get serious about violence in our communities and remove gatekeepers to build more homes. Congratulations to BC voters. You're taking back control of your lives. In the next federal election, you can count on the Conservative leader and our team to put the people first, restore safe streets, build more homes, and make life more affordable in British Columbia.
The honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie.
As part of Small Business Week, I want to welcome our Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce delegation, Rory Ring, his CEO, his wife, Michelle, who's also a small business owner, and Randy Shuren, secretary. Let's take a moment to reflect on the obstacles small businesses had to face during the pandemic and how we were able to adapt together. We promised to do whatever it took to support them, and we did. Now we're going to continue to work with the small business by cutting taxes for growing businesses, helping them move their services online, and improve their e-commerce. We're investing in strengthening our supply chains, as well as we're making it easier and better to export. As well, we're increasing immigration levels to help fill the worker shortage. A special shout out to all Canadian small businesses. They are our lifeblood of our economy. They create jobs, they grow our communities, and they just make us a better country. All and all, welcome all Canadian delegates.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The government's costs increase the cost of living. Millions of inflationary spending increases the cost of things we buy. Inflationary taxes increase these costs even more. The Royal Bank revealed last week that inflation and increased interest rate hikes will cost every Canadian family $3,000 next year. Can this costly coalition finally realize that Canadians can no longer pay and stop raising taxes? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by saying that we know full well that Canadians are facing higher cost of living expenses, and that is why we have set in place many measures to support Canadians. And the Conservatives decided to vote against them. A few days ago, the Conservatives finally did do a flip and decided to support our tax support measure to double the GST credit for 1,000 Canadian families. Will they do the same thing and support Bill C-31 that is before this House? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Policies of this Prime Minister and the NDP mayor in Vancouver led that city to more violence, to be on track for a record number of overdose deaths, and to make that city among the most overpriced housing markets on planet Earth. But voters in Vancouver have said enough. They have fired the NDP mayor and rejected the radical policies and instead voted to remove the gatekeepers, to build more affordable homes, and bring in common sense laws to restore safe streets. Will the government in Ottawa finally get the message?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
I appreciate the leader's interest in the mayoralty campaign in Vancouver, but here in Ottawa, I have a very specific question for the member of Cross. We have an opportunity in C-31, and I ask him whether or not they're going to agree to provide dental care for Canadian children across this country. It's bad enough that they won't support it, Mr. Speaker. Why won't they just let this House, the majority of whom members support it, be there for Canadians, be there for children who need dental care?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Now, it is true that Vancouver already has its own provincial carbon tax, but now the costly coalition of the NDP and this Prime Minister want to force BC to triple, and triple that tax. We already have gas prices nearing $2 a litre in British Columbia. People have voted in the Vancouver elections to reject these inflationary policies. Why won't this costly coalition get the message from British Columbia that people cannot afford these taxes and cancel their plan to triple the tax?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just last Friday, thanks to the climate action incentive payments, a family of 4 received in Manitoba $208, $275 in Saskatchewan, and $269 in Alberta, and in the member opposite's province, $186. And this will happen 4 times a year, Mr. Speaker. We can fight climate change and support Canadians, and that's exactly what we're doing. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate change and no plan to help Canadians.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, they have no plan to fight climate change. What they have is a tax plan. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer has concluded that the majority of people who receive these rebates, which is not even all Canadians, get less in rebates than they pay in taxes. For example, East Coast Canadians, 40% of them, are living in energy poverty. The Liberal Premier in Newfoundland and Labrador has said that the Liberal government in Ottawa should not triple the tax on home heating. Home heating prices are expected to double this winter? Will the government get the message that heating your home in Canada is not a luxury and cancel the plan to triple the tax?
The Honourable Minister of Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, we are helping households transition away from dirty and expensive home heating oil to more affordable and greener heating sources. And we are doing that, and we've committed to do that with our partners in Atlantic Canada, Mr. Speakers. We are working with every single province in Atlantic Canada to support programs that they have put in place, $250 million to help tens of thousands of Canadians have access to cheaper, greener energy, Mr. Speaker. We can fight climate change and help Canadians. On those two fronts, the Conservatives have nothing to say. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So here we go. Trickle-down government. They scoop up the money from the hardworking people who are just trying to heat their homes, doubling home heating bills, bring the money to Ottawa, and then expect us to believe that the money is going to trickle all the way back down to the people who paid for it in the first place. Allow us to doubt that. We already know the vast majority of Canadians are paying far more in taxes than they're getting back in any rebates. Many provinces don't get any rebate at all, but yet this government wants to target seniors for the crime of heating their home. Why don't they cancel this crazy plan to triple the tax?
The Honourable Leader, the Government House Leader.
Trickle-down economics is a policy that advantages the most wealthy with the idea that those at the bottom will benefit. This party opposite, Mr. Speaker, is a party that voted against the Canada Child Benefit. This party opposite voted against raising taxes on those that have the most to give it to those that are less. But I have a question for the member right now. There's an opportunity, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite has an opportunity.
It's okay, we can continue. I believe the honourable member was asking a question. You can start from there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I simply want to know, if they don't support trickle-down economics, then why don't they support dental care for children? Why, Mr. Speaker, do they not support those that are struggling right now with rent with support? They could do that. It's not bad enough they're not supporting it. At least let this House pass it, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, last week in Washington, the Deputy Prime Minister announced Canada's new foreign and energy policy to the entire world. And what is Canada's new doctrine? Well, it's the same as the old one, selling more oil and gas. So much for the planet. The Deputy PM also announced that Canada will fast-track energy products to export more fossil fuels. It's drill, baby, drill. This confirms what many people are already thinking. Basically, all Canada did in Washington was to drive the final nail into the coffin of its fight against climate change. Is that it? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Deputy Prime Minister said last week exactly the same thing as I've said and as my colleagues have said in recent months. We need to have the right projects, and we have to make sure that we are looking at the environmental effects, and also we have to have a conversation with Indigenous groups. But of course, we want to have the right projects to move forward. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. That's the Minister of Natural Resources who answering. That just says everything. So the Deputy PM in Washington reveals deep down that Canada was just looking for an excuse to sell more oil and gas, and she found one. And now suddenly, so much for climate change, and we're just going to export more fossil fuels. They're in it for the glory, Mr. Speaker. The government is trying to use the war in Ukraine to sell more oil despite the climate crisis. So who wrote the Deputy PM's new foreign policy? Is it the leader of the Conservatives? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question and remind him that we have an environmental impact process that is very rigorous, and the Conservatives were against this project with their bill, but we'd made a commitment to be a provider of renewable and clean energy, and that is why the German Chancellor came to Canada to sign an agreement for wind energy. That's exactly what we're doing in Canada. We're supporting Canadian companies and Canadians to fight climate change. The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Oil isn't renewable as far as I know. But anyway, people can no longer afford to feed themselves, and we learned that Loblaws is going to freeze prices on no-name products. It's a nice gesture, but it comes after months of inflation. We can't allow CEOs of these big companies to keep on getting richer, and the NDP has concrete solutions to support families and make these CEOs pay their fair share. Will the Liberals commit to implementing the NDP solutions outlined in the motion to be voted on this afternoon? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with my colleague. Families across Canada are having a hard time making ends meet right now, but we did present in our budget a plan to ensure that everyone pays their fair share of taxes. The government has committed in particular to asking those who prospered the most during the pandemic to pay a bit more, particularly banks and insurance companies. The largest and biggest profiteers will pay a bit more to help everyone. Thank you.
For Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, while grocery CEOs are making millions of dollars in bonuses, Canadians have been making difficult choices about what groceries they can afford. Today, after pressure from the NDP, Loblaws showed that it is possible to freeze prices. They just need to be forced to do it. This afternoon, Conservatives and Liberals have an opportunity to help people instead of rich CEOs who are profiting off struggling Canadians. Will this government admit they've let corporate greed go unchecked by finally voting with the NDP to defend Canadian families?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on making sure that we make life more affordable for Canadians, and I'd like to thank that member and all members in this House for supporting Bill C-30, which is going to see $2.6 billion delivered to 11 million households that need it the most. That includes more than 50% of seniors, Mr. Speaker. We have a chance to do more with the recovery dividend. We have a chance to do more with the 1.5% tax on excess profits from banks and other corporations. There's lots more work we can do in this place, and we're going to do it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
As an immigrant to Canada, whose family came here with little, through the grace of God, hard work and opportunity, it is an absolute honor to stand here as a Member of Parliament and the new finance critic for the Conservative Party. But this is not the reality for many newcomers and low-income families. Because of unjust inflation and rising taxes, it's impossible for families to make ends meet. When will this Liberal government have some mercy and get rid of this unjust tripling of the carbon tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by congratulating the member opposite for his new role, and I hope that we can work together to make life more affordable for Canadians and to work on affordability, just like his predecessor did when their party supported C-30, which was a measure to double the GST benefit. I hope now that he can use the newfound power that he has in his critic role to challenge his own party and ask them why. Why are they obstructing our measures to make sure that kids who need it most can get their teeth fixed? Please use your power responsibly.
Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are about to get hit with an almost 100% increase in their home heating and electricity bills just this winter. Banning and cancelling good energy projects in Canada by this Liberal government has led to Canadians paying more for heating their homes, filling up their gas, and buying groceries. Canadians are already suffering from Liberal-made inflation, rising rents, and the carbon tax, which they plan on tripling. Will the Liberal government end their plans to triple the carbon tax, or do they want to leave Canadians in the dark and in the cold?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 10 Prime Ministers ago in 1970, a program was created to help Canadians face the impacts of natural catastrophe in this country. $8.5 billion have been paid since 1970, but a third of that was paid in the last 6 years, Mr. Speaker.
The cost of natural catastrophe is increasing in Canada. Go and talk to people in Atlantic Canada. If they don't care about the finances, then maybe they'll care about human suffering, Mr. Speaker, and loss of life due to climate change. They have nothing to say about that, Mr. Speaker. We do.
Honourable member for Lakelands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government should actually be concerned about Canadians who are struggling to make ends meet. Now, Canada has shot rapidly up a global list. For what? For being the 25th most expensive country to live in out of 195. And even though a year ago the Bank of Canada governor talked about deflation, he now admits Canada's 40-year high inflation is increasingly self-inflicted by this government. Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, or drive under the NDP Liberal Costly Coalition. So will they cancel their plans to triple their taxes on everything?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
In this House will have an opportunity very soon to vote in favor of C-22 and make life way more affordable for persons with disabilities living in poverty. You could also make life more affordable. One could also make life more affordable, Mr. Speaker, by voting in favor of dental for kids with disabilities or rent for low-income persons with disabilities. There's a lot of important decisions to be made, and I hope the other side will understand how we can make life more affordable for everyone.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, it's these Liberals that are making life more expensive for every single Canadian. They're so out of touch. Healthy groceries are up 15%. Home heating costs will double for most Canadians this winter. It will triple, up 300% for some. And almost 1 million Canadians can't heat their homes already. Gas bills increased 50% since last year. Diesel spiked a record 13% this weekend. But these NDP Liberals are going to make everything more expensive and hike taxes on all essential goods. So will they cancel their plans to triple their cruel carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Speaker, Conservatives have an opportunity to demonstrate that they do care and want to help low-income Canadians. They have several opportunities. In fact, they could support the bill for dental care for low-income children to get their teeth fixed. They could support the bill that's going to put $500 into the pockets of low-income renters. They could support the bill that's going to provide a disability benefit for Canadians with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, there are lots of opportunities for Conservatives to demonstrate in this House how they care for Canadians. I just don't understand why they won't. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, since 2015, the Liberals have increased Canada's debt than all previous governments combined. In 2021, before interest rates rose, they spent $20.2 billion just to pay interest on this debt. The PM and his finance minister said we could afford deficits because interest rates were low, as if there was no risk. And we saw that over the past year, interest rates have risen and have dramatically increased the cost of living for Canadians. When will this Prime Minister stop his plan to triple the carbon tax, which is increasing the cost of living? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, allow me to correct the facts. First, Canada has one of the lowest deficits in this G7. We have shown fiscal responsibility that is absolutely incredible, and other countries envy this. I'd also like to state that the Conservatives seem to want to attack our system to face the climate crisis. I find that strange to have this question from a colleague and member from Quebec. And we know that Quebecers absolutely want to tackle climate change, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, what's clear, in the last 2 years, the Liberal government has deepened the debt. They've added $500 billion in deficit, and the PBO said that there were $200 billion that had nothing to do with COVID, and this is a waste of public funds. And when interest rates go up, they even have to pay more for servicing this debt. The Liberals want to hurt Canadians more who are suffering economically. They don't want to stop this tripling of the carbon tax. Will they finally abandon this plan? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are attacking our plan to fight climate change. But even worse, the Conservatives are attacking our system here in Canada that will support workers. For example, EI, And the Conservatives continue to attack our seniors. They're attacking our pension system. We absolutely have to protect our retirement system here in Canada, and the Conservatives don't want to know anything about this. The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis. Mr. Speaker, when the Minister of the Environment approved Baie du Nord, he suggested that it would be the last oil project he would allow. But last week we learned that it was probably just the beginning. The Canada-Newfoundland Board has just issued calls for bids for oil exploration in 100,000 square kilometers of the province. My question is simple. If Baie du Nord was the last oil project the minister would allow, why did his government why is it still launching bids to fund more oil off of Newfoundland? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. I'd like to remind her that that board is independent from the federal government, and also that all new projects for energy production have to be subjected to the environmental impact process. And we have some of the strictest regulations for methane emissions in the world, not just in the G7. By 2030, we have the strictest rules for methane. The Honourable Member for Métis-La-Matane. The government continues to encourage oil exploration in the middle of Newfoundland's marine refuge. Usually when you look for something, it's because you're hoping to find it. And even worse, the government is allowing these drilling companies to bypass the impact assessment. In the midst of a climate crisis, the Liberal government wants to increase oil production, and it continues to look for it at sea, and it wants to produce more to pollute more. Is the former environmentalist, the Minister of the Environment, still able to look at himself in the mirror? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague to be concerned about my image to that extent. But what's important for us is establishing the facts. And I think she knows that the leader of the bloc approved drilling in Anticosti without any public consultations and assessments. So that's not how we're going to work on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly in line with the new doctrine that Canada announced in Washington last week. Canada unveiled that its new foreign and energy policy is to put the pedal to the floor to sell more oil and gas to its allies. And it's already begun. That's exactly what they're doing right now in Newfoundland, allowing oil exploration without any environmental impact assessments to make it go faster. Mr. Speaker, where is the fight against climate change in this energy policy? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind my colleague that we're putting our foot to the metal for energy projects that are renewable. And we have wind projects at sea, and they will be the greenest in the planet. And that is why the German Chancellor came here to Canada to sign a contract, because Canada will be a top project for the green transition, not just in North America, but across the planet.
For Lethbridge.
The Prime Minister is spending like a drunken sailor. As a result, inflation is excessive. As a result, Canadians are finding it difficult to make ends meet. As a result of that, many Canadians are cutting back on the amount of healthy foods that they purchase and consume. Now the Prime Minister is planning to triple the carbon tax, which will again increase the cost of groceries, home heating, and gasoline for people's vehicles. In other words, the cost of living will hike up once again. Will the Prime Minister exercise some compassion and, for the sake of Canadians, stop his plan to triple the carbon tax?
Well, Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, that member, the entire Conservative Party, continues to put forward policies that actually put the future of Canadians at risk. That's right. They do that by telling us to stop fighting climate change. They do that by telling us to raid the pensions of seniors. They do that by telling us that child care and dental care isn't important. It's about time we came together in this House to focus on what matters, which is making life more affordable and making sure that we grow an economy that works for everybody.
For Lethbridge.
I understand the Liberal talking points, and so do Canadians. They've heard them again and again and again and again. It's rather disingenuous and incredibly repetitive. But the reality is, to the Canadian families that are struggling to make ends meet, those talking points don't make the difference. Yes. What makes the difference is when this government exercises responsibility and cuts back on taxation and makes life increasingly affordable for Canadians. So I'll ask again on their behalf, would this government exercise some compassion, and would the Prime Minister commit today to ending his plan to triple the carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister for Family.
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear what the results are in each side of the House. Canada Child Benefit that our government brought in, they voted against it. Middle class tax cut that we brought in, the Conservatives voted against it. The Canada-wide Early Learning Childcare Initiative that is delivering a 50% fee reduction already to families in that member's riding of Lethbridge and across her province of Alberta, that party, the Conservatives, voted against it. Mr. Speaker, they have an opportunity to vote in favour of dental care for low-income children, to vote in favour for rental support for low-income workers, to vote in favour of supports for Canadians with disabilities. If they care about low-income Canadians, I hope we see their support. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for King Vaughan.
Buongiorno, Signore Presidente. Canadians are struggling because of the inflation caused by this Prime Minister. More Canadians are turning to their local food banks for support. Senior usage of food banks has increased 30%. According to the CEO of Toronto Food Bank, nearly triple the number of people visiting the food bank in June 2022 compared to June of 2019. Those are his words. These Liberals have caused the cost of living crisis. Will this Liberal scrap the planned tax hikes?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
Take any lessons from the party opposite, whose plan for seniors was to raise the age of retirement to 67. Mr. Speaker, one of the very first things we did as a government was to reverse that back to 65. We increased the guaranteed income supplement. We put more money into the pockets of seniors by increasing the old age security by 10%. We're doubling the GST credit, Mr. Speaker. That's our record for seniors, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to deliver for them.
The Honourable Member for Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were shocked to learn that the ArriveCan app cost this government $54 million. That's more than twice the original estimate. But wait, it gets better. Last week we learned that most of that money went to a company with no offices and only 5 staff. This government was using this company to shield subcontractors from accountability and transparency. Canadians want answers. They deserve to know where their money went. Will the government finally take accountability and disclose all the companies that got money from the ArriveCan contract?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has been focused on protecting the health and safety of all Canadians throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. PHAC and CBSA launched ArriveCan in April 2020 to support the government for Canada's efforts to limit the spread of COVID-19 and ensure border security. The ArriveCan app costs less than $1 million, Mr. Speaker, to develop and ensure security of privacy and accessibility for all users. We will continue to ensure the safety and protection of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, Ontario is allowing for-profit childcare to gouge parents. After signing an agreement with the federal government, Ontario removed profit caps and reduced the oversight for for-profit childcare centres. This means higher fees for parents and lower wages for staff to maximize profits. This morning, the Prime Minister stood with Premier Doug Ford. Did the Prime Minister tell the Premier that removing limits on for-profit childcare doesn't work, and will he ensure that federal money is not going to for-profit care? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister for Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. let me be very clear. There is a cap in fees in Ontario for all registered childcare providers going back to the time that we signed the agreement on March 28, 2022. But let me share some good news with you, Mr. Speaker. We are moving forward expeditiously with affordable childcare here in Ontario, and by December of this year, families in registered childcare will receive a 50% reduction in fees. This is fantastic news for families in Ontario. In fact, I was in Sudbury on Tuesday, where families are already receiving rebates, and will continue to roll this out throughout the province.
Member for Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that EI sickness benefits are an important support for Canadians who need to leave work because of illness or injury. We also know that many workers face stressful income gaps between when they exhaust their benefits and when they're healthy enough to go back to work. And that's why in Budget 2021, our government extended EI sickness benefits from 15 to 26 weeks. Can the minister please share with this House more details about this important extension?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, the member from Don Valley East, for his tireless work on behalf of his constituents and all Canadians. Indeed, we recognize that Canada needs an EI system that is fair, flexible, and more responsible to the needs of workers and employers, and that's why we're so excited, and I'm excited to let this House know that by the end of this year, workers will have access to 26 weeks of EI sickness, so they have more time to recover and get back to work safely and in health.
Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, analysts are saying that home heating prices in some places will increase by 300% this winter. That's triple, triple, triple. The Prime Minister's planned increases to carbon tax and payroll tax is a cold-hearted action. The Liberals are literally freezing Canadians out. Is it just inflation, or will this government cut their planned taxes?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think Canadians expect responsible leaders across all members of this House need to address both the affordability issue and the climate crisis. We are certainly working very hard to address affordability issues through doubling the GST tax credit and a range of other things. I do find it very interesting, though, Mr. Speaker, that during the last election campaign, every member sitting in the Conservative Party campaigned on the basis of putting into place a carbon tax. And so this conversion on the road to Jerusalem is very interesting indeed.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, the Liberals' out-of-control spending and tax hikes are increasing the cost of everything. Food prices in remote Indigenous communities are 2.5 times higher than the national average, and rising fuel prices are just compounding inflation's economic toll on families absolutely everywhere. While the minister monitors the situation, families are struggling with food and heat this winter. So when will this government cancel their tax hikes and cap their spending?
Great question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, let's be very clear. When the Conservatives talk about payroll taxes, they're talking about EI, a rate which is lower today than it was when the Leader of the Opposition was in charge of the file. They're talking about the Canadian Pension Plan. We came together with premiers to strengthen the Canadian Plan and make sure that there was more money in the pockets of seniors when they retired, right when they needed it, and the Conservatives are trying to take that away. And when they're talking about carbon pricing, they're talking about a revenue-neutral plan that puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families.
Member for Cumberland, Colchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, Canadians don't believe their plan to tax us more is revenue neutral. Energy costs are expected to rise by double or, sadly, triple this winter. This is a tremendous burden for Atlantic Canadians. We are already suffering from the cost of living crisis, and of course, Hurricane Fiona has taken a just inconceivable toll on Atlantic Canadians. Why does this Prime Minister want to punish Atlantic Canadians by tripling, yes, I said tripling the carbon tax, and will they agree to end it?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Mention for his reference to rural and especially to Atlantic Canadian and Quebec Canadians, as we did fear the brunt of Fiona. I can tell you that the federal government is there to help with a disaster financial assistance arrangement between the provinces, with another $300 million administered through HoC to help the agencies and the communities and those that are falling through the cracks. We will be there for Atlantic Canadians and Quebec Canadians as they battle these storms. That's why we need to address climate change. Ask anybody everybody in my hometown of Port aux Basques, if they believe in climate change, they certainly do, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are at a breaking point. 51% are only $200 away from bankruptcy. And this government's proposed solution, more tax, freezing them out of their homes if they're lucky enough to even have one. They're going to triple the carbon tax on groceries, triple the carbon tax on home heating, and triple the carbon tax on gas. Canadians need hope. They need a break, not more tax. Families need to not choose between buying a winter coat for their children or food on the table. When will the Liberals do the compassionate thing and stop their triple tax hike?
The Honourable Minister for Families.
You know, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite raised some important points about the struggles that Canadians and Canadian families are having right now. But she and her colleagues actually have an opportunity to help. There are several pieces of legislation on the floor of this House right now that would actually support Canadians make those ends meet. I don't understand why they don't want to help low-income Canadian children get their teeth fixed. I don't understand why they don't want to help Canadians with disabilities get a benefit. I don't understand why they don't want low-income renters to get a top-up. Mr. Speaker, they have an opportunity, the Conservatives have an opportunity to demonstrate.
Le député de Thérèse de Blainville.
Mr. Speaker, the pandemic led to a $26 billion debt for the Employment Insurance Fund, but it's not up to taxpayers alone to assume this burden. Neither workers nor companies are responsible for the pandemic or its consequences. The EI Commission even mentioned its concern about the burden the government is leaving to taxpayers. Will the government absorb the EI debt from March 2020 instead of passing on the entire bill for the pandemic to workers and to businesses?
Le ministre de l'Emploi.
The Honourable Minister of Labour. We understand that Canadians deserve an EI system that is effective and adequate. That's why we're working so hard to improve it and to modernize it. We will reveal our plan before the end of the year. I'm very excited about it, and I'm sure everyone will love it. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, I'll remind everyone that the reason unemployment rose during the pandemic was because the government asked businesses to close, and consequently, workers were unemployed. It was the right decision at the time, of course, but it's the responsibility of the government to deal with the consequences of that decision. In the case of CERB, the government is using the Consolidated Fund to shoulder the debt. Why is it refusing to accept the EI debt when those benefits were paid for the same reasons caused by the same pandemic? The Honourable Minister. We have been there for workers and businesses during the pandemic, and we will continue to do so. We will modernize our EI system. That way, if there's another pandemic, we will be ready and we'll be able to better help employers and workers.
There's been a 32% increase in violent crime, with over 124,000 more violent crimes last year than in 2015. Under this Prime Minister, Canadian streets are less safe. That is fact, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, their approach to prioritizing the needs of criminals over victims is not working. When will this Prime Minister finally get serious and start protecting Canadian families from violent offenders, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Too many Canadians have been hurt by gun violence, and our government ran on the promise to redouble Canada's efforts to tackle this issue. We always put the safety of Canadians as our #1 priority. That plan includes banning and buying back assault rifles, freezing the national handgun market, raising sentences for gun smugglers, and my hope is, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member across the aisle will support Bill C-21 in committee and allow us to keep Canadians safer.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they could start by listening to victims of crime. Charlene Bosma testified at our Justice Committee that the one bit of solace that she had after her husband Tim Bosma was brutally murdered was that her daughter would never have to face her father's killer at a parole hearing. But since this Liberal government has failed to respond to the Supreme Court's decision to allow mass murderers the opportunity for parole, this one shred of peace has been ripped away. Will this Liberal government act and end parole hearings for mass murderers?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, serious crimes in this country will always be dealt with seriously. What we are doing on a variety of fronts, Mr. Speaker, is being smart on crime so that we can dedicate more resources to precisely attacking the kinds of crimes that my honourable member has raised, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to go in that direction as former Supreme Court Justice Michael Moldaver, someone who can never be accused of being soft on crime, Mr. Speaker, has stated. We absolutely need to dedicate more of those resources in the system to fighting precisely these kinds of crimes.
L'honorable député de Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord.
Mr. Speaker, in 2021, the Greater Montreal area hit its highest homicide level in 10 years. This year, we're on track to surpass that unfortunate statistic. Last week, authorities found a dead body in a recycling bin. In August, there was a triple homicide. Last week, a man was stabbed in the Baudry metro station. Mr. Speaker, why does the government want to remove minimum sentences and is working to improve outcomes for criminals instead of protecting victims? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, Canadians' safety and security is our absolute priority. We are working with victims to make the system safer. With Bill C-21, we are increasing penalties for gangs and for trafficking in firearms. We're going to reinforce firearms prohibitions that are there. This is what we are doing. And that's what we need to do to make Canada safer. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past few years, I've seen many small businesses in my riding of Châteauguay-Lacolle move to online shopping and upgrade the technologies they rely on. This means they're growing faster, making higher sales, and exporting more. Can the Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development explain how our government is helping more small businesses succeed in the digital economy? The Honourable Minister.
Au cours de la nous avons vu l'ingéniosité des propriétaires des petites.
We are helping owners of small businesses to adopt digital technologies and engage in more digital trades. That's why we have invested $4 billion in the Canadian Digital Adoption Program. We are going to make sure that small and medium businesses are on the cutting edge. Thank you.
Member for Mission Matsky, Fraser-Cunningan.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian small businesses are struggling to stay open. In fact, 1 in 6 say they are considering shutting their doors. The CFIB has urged this government not to burden workers and employers with extra costs at a time when inflation has skyrocketed. Yet on January 1st, the Liberals plan to increase payroll taxes, putting further strain on business owners and providing less take-home pay for workers. So my question today, Mr. Speaker, is very simple. Will this government rescind their plan to increase payroll taxes on January 1st?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Monsieur le Président, je trouve ça vraiment décevant.
Mr. Speaker, I find this really disappointing because we're talking about contributions that Canada are making that will come back to them. In the case of pensions at their retirement, Canadians will be able to benefit from their pension in order to retire with dignity. When it comes to safety of our workers and EI, we know that we are living in a significant unstable moment in terms of the economy. So we are going to be there to support workers as they need it.
Go North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's Small Business Week, and they are worried. A recent survey shows businesses' confidence in the economy is at the lowest point since the pandemic started. 75% of businesses believe inflation will be over 3%, and they are worried about rising costs. This includes payroll taxes and the carbon tax, for which there is no rebate. With the future of the economy uncertain and small businesses worried, will this government cancel its planned tax increases on small businesses next year?
Great question. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question, but let's remember something. It is this government that has been there for small businesses every single time. We've been there for them since the pandemic. We've been there for them during the illegal convoy. We've been there for them in the recent aftermath after Hurricane Fiona. We will always be there standing up for small businesses. We've cut their taxes to help them grow. We've helped businesses export. We're helping all businesses, including women-owned businesses, Indigenous businesses, Black-owned businesses, and we're going to keep doing that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the inflation crisis triggered by the Prime Minister's out-of-control spending and borrowing is devastating small businesses.
That's right.
Small businesses want to increase wages and pay off their COVID debts, but half of them have still not returned to normal revenue. These businesses and their workers can't afford higher payroll taxes and an ever-increasing carbon tax. Will this government cancel plans to raise the carbon tax and payroll taxes on small businesses?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We know that small and medium businesses are the essential component of our economy in Canada. That's why we were there for small businesses during the pandemic. We are always there for our entrepreneurs and our small and medium businesses. And when we talk about contributions that will be increased, that's happening next year, April 2024. These are contributions that are going to come back to employees through EI and come back to Canadians through their pensions.
Or Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the start of Small Business Week. In my riding of Whitby and all across Canada, small businesses are the heart of our communities and the backbone of our local economies. This Small Business Week, we are celebrating the incredible creativity, hard work, and grit of small business owners and their many successes. Could the Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development please share with Canadians what our government has been doing to support small businesses all across the country?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
I want to thank the honourable member for that really important question, and happy Small Business Week to all of the incredible entrepreneurs and businesses across the country. We have been there for small businesses right from the very beginning through this heart-wrenching pandemic that everyone has gone through. We've supported small businesses during the illegal convoy. We have supported businesses in Atlantic Canada after Hurricane Fiona. We're cutting businesses for small businesses so that they can grow. We are helping them export. We are helping them get access to the international marketplace so that they can flourish and contribute to their economy. So during this Small Business Week, I want to wish all of our small businesses happy Small Business Week.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, for 8 months, Ukrainians have heroically defended their country against Putin's genocidal invasion. Yet the government's response has been slow and ineffective. The sanction regime is a mess with no enforcement and no accountability. The humanitarian aid and the supplies for Ukraine that the government has promised have not been delivered. Even Ukrainian MPs have said Canada's response is just unexplainable. And now, the Conservative Premier, Danielle Smith, says that Ukraine should submit. Ukraine needs and deserves our support. When will this government finally act to support Ukrainians?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, I understand our frustration to what's going on in Ukraine, and of course we have to do more. But, Mr. Speaker, we have done a lot since the beginning of this illegal invasion. And we have put sanctions over entities and people to 2,000 people. We've put $3 billion on the table in terms of financial assistance, military assistance, humanitarian aid assistance. But indeed, we need to do more, and we'll do more. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Richmond-Arthabasca.
Monsieur le Président, dans ma circonscription.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding, there is a young 19-year-old woman, Emmy Pruneau, who's been diagnosed with an incurable cancer. To slow the progression, she needs a medication tazemetostat. The problem is that it was approved by Health Canada in 2020, but it's impossible for doctors in Canada to get a hold of it, even though it is for sale in the U.S. and the United States. Doctors have already had to amputate one of her arms, and if nothing is done quickly, her life expectancy can be counted in weeks. My question to the Minister of Health is simple. Will we raise administrative obstacles to ensure that Emmy can have access to that medication? All she wants is to live. The Honourable Minister. I want to thank my colleague, the member for Richmond Arthabaska, for being sincere and honest regarding this extremely difficult situation for this person in his riding. I invite him to communicate directly with me so that we can ensure that we do absolutely everything to get the care that this individual needs in order to support her and all of her loved ones. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Matthew McKay, Minister of Social Development and Housing for the province of Prince Edward Island. I understand that there have been discussions among representatives of all parties in the House and that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in honour of the fallen police officers from South Simcoe Police Service in Innisfil, Ontario. Please rise. Comme il est 15h10, conformément à la...
It being 3:10, pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. McGregor relating to the business of supply.
La question est la suivante.
The question is as follows.
Mr. McGregor, seconded by Monsieur Boulderis, moved that given that, one, big grocery stores have made massive profits in the past year, not long after several were investigated for bread price fixing. Deux, le salaire des...
Two, workers' wages and the prices paid to producers in the agricultural sector are not keeping up with those corporate profits or with inflation.
Ni même que l'inflation. Three, Canadian families are struggling with the rising cost of essential purchases. The House called on the government to recognize that corporate greed is a significant driver of inflation and to take further action to support families during this cost of living crisis, including